Hello and welcome to the latest in Do More with Less Real Stories. We twin our monthly Do More with Less interviews with marketing leaders, giving shorter, punchier sessions that highlight their on-the-ground stories, individuals fighting to work out exactly how to do more with less. Now, today I'm talking to one of 2024's top women in marketing. She's the CMO of Veti, but she also runs her own consultancy helping brands in B2B draw that line between braver, bigger brand storytelling and doing more with less. I'm super pleased to have Veti CMO Michelle Meehan. Hi, Michelle. How are you?
Hi, Mark. Thanks so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
So you've got the up on us because of where we are. It's cold and it's not very sunny. Listen, let's go straight there. I have long argued the case in B2B for bigger, braver, bolder narratives and storytelling. And actually, if I'm honest, in the last 24 months, I think the argument is won. Nobody would bet against it. Everybody kind of, except the most legacy and traditional B2B marketers, most people can see the need for better storytelling and creativity, but they're still not doing it. They can argue it on LinkedIn, but they're still not with it. I still sense that there's a long way to go in actually seeing it and seeing the impact. What about you? How are you seeing the market?
So I do think that there's a lot of instances in which people are not doing bold marketing initiatives, even if they think that they should be. And in a lot of cases, I think that they're held back by the uniformity of the industry that they're in. So I originally started my career in media. I worked for a bunch of Condé Nast brands. I worked for Rodale brands. I worked for Bloomberg brands. And in all of those instances, you have to prove the value of the audience and tell the story essentially twice, because what you're doing is you're telling this story to a potential advertiser of how your brand, let's just say Wired, for example, is important for a luxury watch brand to advertise in. And then you have to tell the story to the Wired audience of why, because they've succeeded so well in their individual careers, that they should then buy this luxury watch. And so there's this dual system happening. And when I transitioned over to HR tech, I was given what are the industry rules, if you will. And they were kind of boring, but it was this is how we do things in this industry. You need to use a case study to prove things. And I've really bucked that trend. I have not followed any of those rules that I've been given, and I've had incredible success because of it. But I think I've only been able to have that success because I have a remarkable leader that I've now been with at 3 companies. 3 of the 4 companies I've been at in an HR tech, but he's wonderful in that he gives me free rein. And without that free rein, I couldn't do the things that I do. So, for example, we were recently in Nashville for an event called RecFest. And at this event called RecFest, the event is supposed to be different than your traditional HR tech conference. It's held outside. It's held in a really unique city. There's food trucks and entertainment and things happening in different areas and different stages. And what you actually see is a lot of vendors come to this conference and they kind of don't know what to do because it strips the format that they're used to completely out. And yet they kind of sometimes do the same thing. Like they'll have their regular standard booth and table and tchotchkes that are branded that are not super useful. And I told...
A jar of candy.
Yes. And I told my CEO, listen, this is what I want to do. Veti is a fully customizable platform. I want to have an on-site graffiti artist, custom branding Converse. And he's like, oh my God, do you think we could afford that? And I was like, no, we'll do it. We'll make it 100 pairs of shoes. We'll raffle it off. But it will create meaning with this group that we're really trying to make an impact with. And it will create a value relationship. And not to toot my own horn, but we had 6 people deep at the booth all day of people trying to register, people showing off their sneakers, people going on podcasts that other folks were hosting and saying, I want the Vetti sneakers, like, look at these, showing them off. We had incredible social engagement. And I think that's all due to the fact that I really buck the trend. I go after it from what I would call B2C sort of route and not a B2B route. And that really creates engagement in something that is very static overall.
Finally, an episode of Do More with Less People that my daughter Matilda will absolutely watch. She turned 10 on Saturday. A birthday present from her mother and me was a brand new pair, her first pair of navy blue Converse All-Star Chuck Taylors. And I was so proud because I've been wearing those shoes like since I was a kid, and I will never grow out of them. Amazing. So look, so many questions. Firstly, I want to talk a little bit about a boss who gives you free rein and what that means, and that kind of trust that allows you to actually listen to your instincts and not be scared. I want to talk about what made you go from media, where I used to live, but on the other side, the editorial side, as opposed to your commercial side. And I actually never thought about the advertising guys telling stories twice. So I love that. Thank you for sharing. But I really want to know this thing about you bucking the trends, right?
Yeah.
So was it always your instinct to buck the trend, go against, swim the other way? Or was it just frustrating watching this volume of ocean of kind of slightly shitty thing go before you, and you're like, we can do better?
Well, I think it's interesting. In media, I don't know that I felt like I was bucking the trend. I felt like I was with my people, right?
Yeah.
We were creating on large scales. People were driving Corvettes outside of events. Like, it was.
But also you worked on some of the world's sexy magazines. I mean, those Condé Nast, you could dream titles, right?
Yes. What I think happened when I moved over to B2B brands, and that really isn't a sexy story. That is a transition that happened because of motherhood. Commuting to New York and being gone, 13, 14 hours a day was becoming untenable with 2 toddlers. I was missing their whole life, their whole awake time. I was only seeing them on the weekend. And so I specifically sought out a brand that was close to home, that had a great employer branding campaign that was talking about, we're this New York brand really close to home in New Jersey. And so that's sort of how I made the transition. It's not all that sexy of a story, but when I came over, I definitely didn't fit in. The people were amazing, but I too was like, what is an ebook, and why do we care about it, and why are we talking about features? And later, I read this book. It's called Move Fast, Break Shit, Burnout. It's a wonderful book by 2 women, Tracy and Shannon, and I've later wound up working with them from a consultancy perspective, but they run this amazing company called Catalyst Constellations, and it's all about these people who are catalysts. And they're people who connect the dots really quickly, and they can see forward, and they can see vision. They see how everything sort of goes together, and they're either really valued in a company or they're really not.
Been there.
You should definitely read the book.
Oh my God,
you'll see yourself
my language.
Pages. Yeah. And I wound up moving through the boss that I had at that first company to a new company. And she was wonderful. She sort of was forced into a box. I was forced into a box. We moved into this new company. We were taken out of our box. We met Jason, who is the person I've moved company to company with. And he was one of those people. He was also a catalyst. And so because he and I could both see sort of that vision really early on in working together and creating pitch decks, there developed this really profound trust quickly. And that has just gone and grown over time in, a cosmic sort of way in terms of how much we've been able to achieve.
So on this subject of catalysts, there's a page in this book which I wrote in 2021, in the last chapter, right? And it's about it's the last chapter. It's the conclusion. It's my message to the world, right?
Uh-huh.
And I'm talking specifically to the people that got to the end of the book because they enjoyed it, because they felt like I was talking to them. And it's literally saying sometimes you are going to be the interesting misfit. Sometimes you're going to be the often loved but not always understood ideas machine. And sometimes you're going to be absolutely valued and loved and employed. And sometimes in certain jobs, you're going to be the restless, annoying, does this person ever stop asking bloody questions kind of, and you will have had your fair share of those where somebody on one side will be determined to hold on to you at all costs because nobody else does what Michelle does. But on the other side, somebody who just sees you as a costly liability. And can we ever really put into practice those ideas anyway, because it doesn't fit in with the way we do things? Is it just a matter of finding somebody that trusts you enough to give you the space? Because if so, that's a slightly bleak thought. Is it about finding someone you trust and that's it?
I don't know that I believe that wholeheartedly, because that's definitely worked on the B2B side for me with Jason. But on the media side, I felt like everybody was like me. I was not a standout in that crew. I mean, people had the most out of the box, terrific, incredible ideas I've ever heard of. And so what I think for me keeps me sharp and perhaps people could use as a tool is really not studying the campaigns inside my space. I think that you have to relentlessly study your customers, right? And that's sort of that Jeff Bezos idea. But I also think, study the campaigns being featured on Ad Age. Like, what are consumer brands doing? Where are consumer brands seeing resonance? And where are they sort of falling flat? And I think if you do that, you can point to these examples to sort of build that bridge to trust if you're not there yet.
I'm going to play devil's advocate for a moment, and I'm going to do for our audience what some of them will be thinking, right? So I love it. I get it. Go and find out what's happening on the front page of Ad Age and see what the big, loved, known brands of the world are doing. But how does that relate to me? I'm trying to sell a piece of HR software to some frustrated people who probably know that anything I sell them might be able to help them do their jobs easier, quicker, better, but it means going to have a really tough conversation with the CFO in a year where budgets are down and they might not be popular already and they might feel like shrinkage is happening, so I don't want to stick my head above the parapet. And besides, this mad woman on the end of the phone, Michelle, she's talking about consumer-style campaigns. Like, does she not know I'm trying to sell to a load of bored individuals from 9 to 5? Like, how do you sell in?
Well, I think there's a couple things. One is the person that you're talking to, right? The person that you're trying to sell to, you have to do two specific things, in my opinion. One, you have to exploit their pain. You have to showcase that you understand exactly where they are coming from, what they're experiencing on a day-to-day scenario. And for me in HR tech is often those people who are shrinking away from being the loud person in the room, right? Because they've always been seen as a cost center. They are sometimes seen as administrative. They're not really seen as, lifting the bottom line. But if you can exploit that pain and showcase how you can solve that pain, that's going to be really important for them. But then you have to take the second step. They believe in you. They may not believe in themselves. So how do you position them so they feel like they can be the hero to that organization? How can they bring that message forward in a way that gives them the opportunity to be the coolest, most beneficial person in the room? And I think oftentimes we stop at that first step. If we're going beyond talking about features and benefits, which gosh, I hope you are, and we're talking about solving their pain, but we're not talking about how they go in and pitch that to the CFO, to the CEO, also to the CTO, right? All of those people speak different languages. We're not really setting them up for success. And in reality, we're not setting ourselves up for success. So I think that's where that media background of you're selling it multiple times comes in and is really key. And people need to be thinking about that.
Yeah. So tell me this then. We are talking to your current audience right now, Michelle.
Yes.
Listening to this podcast is all over the world. These are small, stripped back, under-resourced, lean marketing teams, okay? And they are from every sector, HR, but also, finance and martech and ad tech and travel and logistics and what have you, right? They have been stripped of their resource. They've been stripped of budget. Sometimes, in commonplace anyway, they are a lone marketing person with a little bit of budget for some freelance. And they're still being asked to hit targets which haven't shrunk, right? Their targets have either remained the same or indeed elevated. What's the raw, tangible benefit of getting into the place where you are so expert, the brand storytelling, the narrative, the distinction, the unremarkable to unforgettable, rather than what their peers and their senior leadership will want from them, which is pure performance?
I think a lot of marketers, because of the driving force of performance, ROI, ROAS, right, are constantly focusing on funnel metrics. And I actually think that's the wrong place to start the focus. I think very much you need to start at the why. And this is the Simon Sinek, concept of like, why are you servicing individuals? And you need to do that golden circle exercise until you get tight on what is your position in the market. I think we're not spending enough time on the strategy portion in terms of positioning, ICP, messaging, core comms that we want to get out into the world. And we're focusing only on the demand gen side of things. And I will tell you from personal experience that if you get that first part right and you get your brand in a solid place, every single dollar that you spend in demand gen is going to be at least 3 times more valuable, if not exponentially more. Right? Because at the end of the day, if no one knows who your brand is, you're just noise.
You're talking my language, but how do we get CEOs and founders who are being absolutely hounded by VC backers to take their eyes off the VC metrics of closed one, closed one, closed one, closed one, closed one, per deal, per conversation, closed one. What did you close? That, pipeline. They won't, it's not easy for the influencers at that end to accept that time taken or craft spent on a really, really vital positioning or a set of content strategy campaigns that go straight to the pain and go straight to the heart, or a kind of a distinct take on marketing and outreach is of any worth. They will only look at the numbers, and where you are super expert lies somewhere between the numbers. You're almost you float among the numbers, kind of influencing them, holding them up, shaping them, but you're not visible. You don't have there's no P&L for brand narrative.
Yes. I would agree with you. And it is a struggle. Even for me, when I have a leader that believes in me, my CEO, wholeheartedly, we've been together for 3 companies. He believes in me. But when we go to board meetings, the questions on me are pretty tough. And we do this thing where we present 2 perspectives. So the first perspective that we present is what we call swagger. And it's really sort of a culmination of all those intangible brand things. So, images of how many podcasts we were on, how many times we were picked up in the news, how many customers referenced us, how many influencers and analysts talked about us. And then combined with that, we talk about all of those demand gen things. Now, it's a completely separate slide, but we talk about brand and swagger first, and then we jump into the impact on the numbers. And, for a lot of these folks who have, smaller marketing teams, I don't want you to think coming away from this, oh, this girl has all the money in the world. And in addition to all the money in the world, she must run a huge team. I do not. I am doing more with less. Jason and I move from company to company with a few other folks who are in scale up mode. So it's me right now at the company I'm at now. I have a content marketer that reports to me, who's reported to me at 3 companies. And I have a digital associate who is incredible, who works with us for a few hours a week. He's worked for me at several of my consultancy companies, and he's worked for me now here. And what's key about that is he's this incredible expert. He's been on a TEDx stage. He's been a CMO, but he is fractional to me, and his level of understanding and impact is so remarkable because he has that experience. And I think that's where the world is going, where, that fractional expertise is going to come in and influence all of your numbers and your output in a really big way, but you're not going to have to do all of those things on your own. But I still would argue, having that brand and the assurance of who you are at the front end is the most important piece to make sure those other pieces flow and you're not doing what my one boss called random acts of marketing.
What I love here is that you move together as a squad between jobs.
Yes, we call ourselves the serial scalers.
So serial scalers, that sort of gets rid of the problem because their mission is serving each other. You all know one another. You all are loyal to one another. You're like the A-team, for God's sake. Oh
my God, I love that reference.
So you are kind of beholden to making sure that each other are successful and you look out for each other, and that there's where you get your sense of mission from, I guess.
Yes, 100%. And I think one thing that is really incredible is once you get to know those people and trust those people, you sort of have this, choreography that you run at different companies. And I know what you're saying on the fractional side. And I have felt like that at certain companies that I have worked for from a consultancy perspective. But when they allow me to bring in the people that I know will work best and work among them, and it's the same people I've worked with in different scenarios, it's incredible what we produce together for these small firms in amounts of time that they could never expect. But there's a level of they have to kind of give it over. So I don't know if you've ever seen the show The Prophet, and he walks in and he's like, I own X% of the business, but I'm 100% in charge. There's a level of I can only work with clients who give me that level of freedom to really impact their business. If they want to micromanage it, from soup to nuts, beginning to end, it's not going to really work because I'm not going to be able to create the impact that I need to. But it's funny because there's actually this talk that Steve Jobs gave, and he actually talks about consultants, and he feels as though it's a bit of a wasted field because unless you've been in the trenches to what you're saying, unless you've all of a sudden gotten a problem at 10 p.m. and figured out how to solve it by the next morning for the people around you, you're not, living up to your full expectation and your full, level of possibility. And I think, what you're saying is, when you have that, camaraderie with other people, you sort of are able to get around that. And I really do love the A-team reference.
I wish we could go on longer, but Michelle, that is we've gone way to time. Do more with listeners. Do more with listeners. We'll work on that, Andrea. Do more with listeners. This has been Michelle Meehan. Somewhere in New Jersey, there is a small, tight, highly drilled, highly trained squadron of rebels called the Serial Scalers, who can move between brands, between briefs, between companies, and kick butt with very little resource in double time, which I absolutely love. They've got badges, they've got tote bags, they've got T-shirts, and they've got personalized Converse sneakers, for God's sake. So get in touch. And Michelle, thank you. Seriously, thank you for spending some time with us. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you so much for having me, Mark. It was wonderful.
Yeah, take care. Yourself too. Bye-bye.
Bye.